Welcome to the Lighter Side of the Spectrum, a podcast where we explore how to find joy, connection, and growth while navigating the challenges of parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum. Remember that inclusion and hope are key to making life better for everyone, and that even in the most challenging moments, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Coffer.
Welcome to the Lighter Side of the Spectrum. I am your host, David Coffer, and this is the podcast where we navigate the ups and the downs, the in-betweens of parenting and supporting autistic and neurodivergent individuals. We aim to inform, inspire, and lighten the load, one conversation at a time. Today, I am thrilled to introduce someone who's not only a powerhouse in the parenting world, but also someone who truly gets it, Rich DeCicco. Rich's passion for empowering parents of kids on the spectrum is deeply personal. As a fellow autism dad, Rich knows firsthand the challenges, fears, and triumphs of parenting a neurodivergent child. So he's taken his own experiences, coupled them with research and coaching, and created evidence-based strategies that have transformed the lives of countless families. Rich's mission is clear: to help parents create a home where everyone thrives, not just kids, but themselves as well. So we're going to dive into his insights, tips, and what he calls the Parenting Breakthrough Guide. So let's get started. Rich, thank you so much for joining me today.
David, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad you reached out. I'm really jacked to get into this topic. And so why don't we just kind of start by talking about your parenting journey? What inspired you to kind of take your personal experiences and turn them into this mission to help other parents?
Yeah, it started in kind of late 2019. My kid's mom and I started to feel like our son was delayed in ways that were beyond just, oh, he's a boy and he's growing up a little bit slower than everybody else. We have a 14-year-old, she's now 14-year-old daughter, and my son is now 12. And our daughter set the tone for us in a pretty unfair way because she's one of those kids that just excels at everything and can walk into a room and make a friend instantly. Everything she tries to do just goes great, and she's just all puppies and rainbows. And then our son was having tantrums and meltdowns and becoming super emotionally dysregulated over really tiny things at 8 years old. And it felt like behavior that you'd expect from a 3-year-old.
Okay.
And we said, okay, well, and people had been, especially some older relatives in my life who were always good for some unsolicited advice, were saying, oh, get him checked, talk to his doctor, get some early intervention. And we finally broke down and said, okay, let's get with some professionals and see if they can isolate what's going on with him. So we went to a place called Harbor Regional Center, which is in the South Bay of Los Angeles here.
Okay.
And they came back to us after a lot of evaluation saying he is on the autism spectrum. Meanwhile, throughout this whole process, we said, oh, there's no way he's on the autism spectrum. That doesn't make sense.
Why did you say that? I want to jump in there because I'm curious.
Because we didn't know what we didn't know.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
And to that point in my life, my whole frame of reference for what autism was the movie Rain Man. I didn't realize,
like many others, right?
Yeah. I didn't realize that it was literally a very wide spectrum of appearances, and the way in which autism shows up is different. I mean, once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. You have not met them all. You've just met that one. And so we came back from having this meeting with the counselor saying, okay, well, at least we have a frame of reference now for how to understand the way our son sees the world. And so we made a plan. We said, okay, we're going to get some therapies lined up. We'll have a meeting with his teacher at school. We'll have a meeting with the administration. And then March 2020 rolls around and everything's shut down.
Right.
And, maybe in some places that a lot of this stuff was still available and nothing shut down. But in Southern California, we were holed up inside, wiping down our groceries with with disinfecting wipes. And
Right. Yeah.
it felt
What
like,
a different world that was, right?
yeah,
Like, and that was the whole West
yeah,
Coast too. I'm in Seattle, and it was
yeah.
the same for us.
It felt like the beginning of a zombie movie. And we went from having a plan to having no plan at all and no course of action, really. So from there, I had kind of nothing but free time at that point, and dug into all the research I could possibly do, watching tons of YouTube videos, reading blog articles, just days after days of research. And we ended up trying quite a lot of specific strategies. And after a year and a half or so of just applying things, trying things, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, we were able to see a lot of progress just in the work we were doing on our own. And it's he's 12 now, and it's a whole new world for him and for his family.
What were some of your goals? You talk about, I mean, obviously, when you're researching, and I think almost every parent that has been through that process of receiving the diagnosis, no matter the age, right? I think that's kind of step one for everyone. You just kind
Yeah.
of throw yourself into it, right?
Yeah.
Some of it's just you, like you say, you don't know what you don't know, so you're trying to learn about it. You're trying to ramp up what to trying to figure out as best as you can what to expect, right? Yeah, we all want to kind of prepare ourselves, but in your case, was there anything in particular that you were trying to address?
We wanted him, first and foremost, to be able to move through the world and have interactions in other people with other people in a way that would create a great life for him.
Mm-hmm.
He was not the best at making friends his age. He was very good at making friends with little kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it became clear to me later on, the reason for that was that when you're interacting with a peer, there's a level of unpredictability. You don't
Right.
necessarily know what that other person is going to do. And when they do something you don't expect, then you become dysregulated, because if there's one thing he really still dislikes but has learned how to manage, is surprises.
Mm.
He wants to know exactly what he's getting for Christmas, for
Oh,
instance.
okay.
So when he was interacting with really little kids, he could have control over that situation. He could be the boss, which was much easier for him. So in order to have him get to a place where he could make friends his own age, who were on his level in terms of development and interests, and just in general peers,
Mm-hmm.
that took a lot of work. It took
Oh, I'm sure.
a lot of practice. So we would literally do role playing and
Wow.
role play scenarios. Okay, I'm gonna be your friend on the playground, and I'm going to take this ball and I'm not gonna want to give it back to you. What's the best way to react? Because that would ultimately, when he was 8, 9 years old, and before that, that would create an absolute just
A
tornado.
meltdown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he would flip out, because again, it's a surprise. It's something he didn't expect to happen that's negative for him happens, and it's a blow up.
Mm-hmm. It's like,
So
it's kind of like instant dysregulation, isn't it? Kind of like
yeah,
just like a switch gets flipped almost.
yeah. So I mean, one of the things I teach is that firefighters don't practice on actual burning buildings. They practice with a controlled burn in a scenario that they can control, so that when they get to the real burning building, they know what to do. And in order to and let me know if I'm carrying this analogy too far, but in order to in order to get to a
So far,
place,
I'm tracking. I think it's, no, I think it tracks just fine.
yeah, in order to get to a place where your child on the spectrum knows how to handle an unexpected situation that would create dysregulation for them, they need practice.
Yeah.
They need to, when everybody's cool, when everybody's chilled out and in a good mood, okay, let's practice what's the best course of action for you when something happens that you don't like and that you don't have control over.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's, I don't want to call it a skill, right? It's just, it's, as humans, it's something that we do. I mean, it's a type of behavior, right? But it's something you have to practice,
Yeah.
that may come or does come more naturally for many neurotypical people, right? That you don't necessarily think about that you're practicing. These are things that, just the way that we're wired, I think makes it easier or maybe more challenging, just depending on how you're wired. And like
Yeah.
you said, when you're 5 in the playground, you're figuring this out. And maybe again, if you're on the spectrum, you're not for whatever reason, but you can in certain cases, I think.
Yeah. And well, it highlighted too for me how bad I was at that in some scenarios, and that
How
I
bad you were at which part?
at handling unexpected events that I didn't like.
Ah, yeah. Right. Join the club. Right.
Yeah. Uh, one of the biggest gifts that doing all this work with my son gave me is it showed me that I had a lot of work to do on me. And that in doing that work, I could be a much more effective parent, and in turn model for him how to be a better just a better friend, how to
Hmm.
be how to be in relationship with other people in better ways, and how to handle stress and just the inevitable kind of monkey wrenches of life in ways that are not going to send you into a spiral, because we can't parent well if we're a mess.
No,
So
no, that's that's so true. I mean, I'm laughing because it sounds like it sounds obvious in a way,
yeah.
but it's true. Like we don't think about that. Getting back to kind of you don't know what you don't know. Life is stressful in general anyway, right?
Yeah.
You throw in the different other stressors that affect us as parents,
Mm-hmm.
the autism diagnosis, the unpredictability, the therapies, the job, supporting, there's all these things that kind of can pile on that I think a lot of people can relate to in
Yeah.
terms of, and I think what also compounds things that people, especially again, if you're not in tune or you don't necessarily have the knowledge, realize like the majority of these kids, the neurodiverse, autistic, my son for sure, they are so sensitive and in tune with our regulation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like you're
Yeah.
saying, it doesn't take much for us to be dysregulated, even if we don't even think of it necessarily as being dysregulated, but to to send them off because there's just they're so in tune. And
Yeah.
I think so many people don't realize that. And that's something I know when we had our conversation earlier, we touched on. Um, so I just want to kind of cue that up for you because I think it's really great how you've approached that and how you've kind of tackled that, and how you're coaching other parents to try to manage that.
Yeah. I'll give you a story. It happened last night. We're having dinner, and my son was coming down with a cold. And his cold got so bad, actually, that he had a lot of trouble sleeping last night. He didn't go to school today. But last night he has a sensitivity, as many kids on the spectrum do, to taste and texture when it comes to
Sure.
food.
Yeah. Very
And
common.
yeah. And I made the mistake of trying something a little bit different in the way I made the broccoli last night. And he was like, ugh, it's not good, Dad. I was like, all right, man, sorry. And it's okay. We have that kind of relationship where we can be honest with each other about,
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
if we like things and we don't. My kids don't know how good they have it with my cooking, but that's a whole other podcast.
That is another podcast, as a matter of fact, because it's same here, but yeah.
But he it kind of set me off a little bit, and I was feeling stressed out about something. And at a certain point I was like, man, are you in a really bad mood because of your cold? And he goes, maybe I'm in a bad mood, but you should ask yourself, are you in a bad mood too? And I was like, dude, you got me. You got me.
He called you out.
Yeah. And he knows, like, he can feel it. I don't have to say anything for him to know, hey, are you okay? Is there something going on with you? And it's not like he gets it right every time, but this is all stuff that did not come naturally to him. He just learned it with us constantly prompting and practicing and being very expressive verbally with our feelings as parents.
That's great.
So I have some autistic traits. I'm not fully on the spectrum. I test way below actually getting a formal diagnosis, but I have a formal diagnosis of ADHD. And I can get sensitive to touch and sensitive to light and sound. Unexpected sounds are the hardest thing for me. I learned through this whole thing to just say it to people, and especially to him, like, hey, I'm so sorry. Just feeling a little overwhelmed right now. I just need 2 minutes to myself. And practicing that kind of communication with him has taught him to do the same thing for us. And
I think that's great advice.
yeah.
And I'll just go one step further. Sorry, Rich. Just
It's okay.
Yeah, no, because we have slightly different. Well, I'll say slightly different experiences. I mean, we both have autistic sons, as we've discussed. But again, the challenges were very different for me and for my wife and for Stone, because he was unable to communicate. He's non-speaking. He has communication challenges, which is a different layer on top of that.
Right.
But to your point, one of the things that we've always tried to do is, like you said, still talk to him, to him.
Yeah.
Explain things. This is one of the things that I kind of talk about all the time. That's presume competence. Make sure that you give them the respect that they can understand way more than I think, unfortunately, most of society thinks they can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that your experience is quite a bit different from mine. I have talked with parents of kids who are nonverbal, who are able to eventually get to a place where there's some sort of signal they can at least receive when when they're trying to say, this is too much for me, beyond just
right.
Yeah.
They could communicate somehow. I mean, they can at least try to get that message across.
Yeah. So maybe you've covered this in your podcast before, but what has worked for you when it comes to that?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for us obviously has just been the spelling, spell to
Yeah.
communicate, and the letter. Once we discovered that almost 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Before that, frankly, Rich, it was a bit of a guessing game. Stone has limited speech, but as we've learned, it's unreliable because of the apraxia, right? The brain body disconnect.
Right.
So there'd be times, and he's confirmed this multiple times with us. He says, believe what I spell, not what I say.
Mm.
So what the example I always give is we'd say, what do you want for dinner? Perfect example. And he'd say, no pizza, no pizza. I'm like, all right, he doesn't want pizza tonight. And, so I'm going to make him a quesadilla or whatever. Well, now he'll say no pizza, but, I put up the keyboard and he'll say, yes, I want pizza.
Mm.
So
I see.
sometimes it's the exact opposite. And this has been confirmed by, I've talked to many other parents and non-speakers. It's really interesting. So
Yeah.
so that kind of compounds it, right? So think about it again from their perspective. All right, you have this limited communication, but even that's messed up. Like, so when you do communicate, it's not what you're intended to be. It's like almost the opposite. And then so you can't even get your needs met that way.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's really fascinating and sad in a way until but that's the beauty of once they are able to get this reliable communication through, again, the letterboard or typing or however they take it.
Yeah.
It's understandable why it's just so life changing.
Right. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to kind of elaborate on before, like we are talking about the sensitivity that they have and the stressors that we have as parents, the multiple stressors. And, I think it's important that as parents, again, we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and we talk about like, hey, in my case, don't get me wrong. I get a lot of compliments, which is nice. I appreciate that. People are, well, you're a great dad.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty good, but I'm not perfect by
Yeah.
far.
Who is?
And yeah, who is, right? Of course. But there are times like we've talked about, it is really challenging.
Yeah.
It could be your kids having a meltdown. In Stone's case, and again, this is common with a lot of kids on the spectrum. They have loops, so they can repeat the same thing over and over. They have impulses where their emotions get the best of them. And they say they can't control it. And in Stone's case, he'll involuntarily hit me, which is,
Hmm.
hard not to react to that in a maybe not so great way. It's
Yeah.
something I've learned to manage, try to manage. Not always great. Like I said, you have moments where you're not proud, right? You do your
Yeah.
best, but you're not proud. And
Yeah.
this is something again that you and I talked about a little earlier. And so
Mhm.
I just like you to touch upon that. How do you coach parents to deal with those types of situations?
Yeah. There's a couple of different touchstones there. The first is, okay, we have a parenting moment that we're just not proud of, and we had a knee-jerk reaction and it happened. There's nothing we can do about the fact that we did something that we much rather we didn't do. So the first thing I always do for myself, and the first thing I always tell folks to do, is well, that's okay.
On cue, Stone made his appearance. He just wanted to let me know that he was tired, and
Hey,
I think he
Stone.
may lay down and take a nap. But he
Right
usually
on.
makes at least one appearance during the podcast. So this
Right
is,
on.
yeah.
No problem. Get him a mic.
Yeah, I know. We will. I'll have to share. He has made it. We have done an episode together, and we will do others. So you'll have to check that out because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I was saying, should I back up or should I just?
Yeah, go ahead and
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different touchstones there, and the first one is we do something as a parent that we're just not proud of, and we react in a way that we rather we didn't. We have to first of all, repair our internal relationship. So there's something I stole from Dr. Becky, who's amazing. She's been a huge, Dr. Becky Kennedy. Are you
I
familiar with her?
don't. No,
Okay.
I'm not familiar with her.
She's so great. And she doesn't necessarily focus on neurodivergent kids. And it's she's broadened it out to deeply feeling kids. That's
Hmm.
kind of the term she uses, and I love that term. I think it just makes a really, really big tent for us, and
I
it's a
love that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a tent that a lot of us, whether it's ADHD, autism spectrum, or no diagnosis whatsoever, we can all be under that tent together as deeply feeling kids. So I want to repair that relationship with myself by first saying, I'm a good parent, just having a rough moment. So that allows me to let go of the guilt, let go of the shame, and just say, okay, I did that. I don't like that I did that, but it doesn't make me a bad parent. And so I can I can move through this event and hopefully get
Yeah.
it right the next time.
I think that's really powerful. Because again, I think I guess speaking from personal experience, it's so easy to fall into that, oh my God, I'm an awful parent, right? I'm an
Yeah.
awful dad. Well, what kind of dad would do that? Would
Yeah.
respond that way to my kid and this, right? It's easy to and let that snowball. So I like that. Just saying, wait a minute. No, I'm still a good dad.
Yeah.
This wasn't a good moment, but you can move past it.
Yeah. And, we parent with the tools we were given. And
That's true.
our parents probably handed us a bunch of, pretty dated tools that don't work so well. Hopefully we picked up some better ones along the way and dropped some of the ones that don't work, but those tools are still hanging around in there. And so, my parents yelled at me quite a bit and were dismissive quite a bit. They're great parents and I love them, but they didn't get it right all the time. And so I still have all those.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of us, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't just shed them. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just like you said, that's kind of it's part of us.
Yeah.
And
It's kicking around in there. So the awareness of that, it puts you a step ahead already. Just knowing, like, I don't know how much therapy you've done, but the whole point of therapy is to know why you do certain things.
yeah,
And knowing why you do certain things doesn't always stop you from doing them, but at least you have context for awareness and hopefully some repair.
yeah,
So the next step when something like that happens where you have a parenting moment that you're not proud of is, after you've given yourself some time to repair the relationship with yourself, is to then repair the relationship with your child. And you do that by just saying, that was really intense, and I want to apologize to you for how I acted, and I want to let you know that I'm going to be better in the future. And there shouldn't be any buts, there shouldn't be any ifs, there
right,
should
right.
there
Yeah,
shouldn't.
no, that's it. That's it. That's the message, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I mean, that's
Yeah. And if we show them, one, that what we did was not personal and it was not a reflection on their value. And it also shows them that it's okay to make a mistake as long as you own the mistake. And I think that example is a really valuable lesson for a kid. Oh, here's because I think we forget what it felt like to be a kid a lot of the times. We forget that,
it was a long time ago.
yeah, yeah, for me, uh, more years than I can't do the math, but when you're a kid, your parents are your world.
Yeah.
And they are, I mean, no matter what quality level of parent you get at, up to a certain age, your parents are really your model of what a human being should be.
That's right.
So if we can show them mistakes are human, and people who make mistakes and apologize, that's normal, right? We don't have to dig our heels in and escalate and be right all the time.
It's normal and appropriate, right? And
Yeah.
healthy, in terms of respecting, I think, that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest things I had to let go in parenting in general was the need to be right,
Mhm.
and the need to win the argument and to have the last word and come out on top.
The old "because I said so" type of parenting approach, right? Like, I mean, I think that's something, again,
Yeah.
our generation
Yeah.
collectively can relate to. I think that's been one of the more positive changes, frankly, that I do see among parents today. I mean, I know I've tried to be more conscientious of that, and others, friends.
Yeah. Yeah. There's certain times where you need to pull that card just for their safety.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. That's the
Yeah.
good time to use that card.
Yeah. I mean, like ADHD kid, I can't tell you how many times I've had to grab my son's arm when he was about to walk into like a very busy street. And like, "Ow, you hurt my arm." "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I hurt your arm. I just really didn't want you to get run over."
Yeah.
And
Her arm's a little better than,
Yeah.
a smashed skull or whatever. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, it's an analogy I use too in the book. When your kid is holding a flamethrower, like, you need to do what you need to do to get the flamethrower out of their hand. And if you have a parenting moment getting that flamethrower away from them, that you're not proud of, well, again, use the repair
Yeah.
with yourself and repair
Yeah.
with them. But for everything else, it comes back to practicing when everything is mellow. And it's a kind of practice and visualization that I've had to do with myself. Like, okay, my son is doing something I really would rather he didn't. What's my kind of step-by-step there, in a way that's not going to damage the relationship, that's not going to make me say or do something I'd regret, and is not going to escalate it for him. And that breaks down to effective boundary setting, which is that's a whole conversation.
Oh yeah. There's a long conversation and a lot of different paths we can go down. And that's definitely something I want to revisit, in the future. Because again, I think there are a lot of things. I mean, I was just, as we're talking here, again, just talking about just the differences, like we said, in terms of parenting. The worlds couldn't, in so many ways, feel more different than the worlds we grew up in.
Yeah.
Compared to today. And again, especially if you throw in, like I said, the challenges and that go with raising neurodivergent, autistic kids, and just it was just a world that almost felt like just didn't exist. And, like I said, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and that we're trying to navigate with a lot of different tools and technology and everything else, while seemingly the world is kind of burning down around us. Yeah. There's a lot going on. I want to get to our tip of the day, which I know you have a good one. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the lighter side of the spectrum. So far, we're commercial free, but if you're finding value here, one way to support the show is by considering me for a speaking engagement. I speak on unlocking potential, whether it's for individuals like my son or for for entire organizations. I also offer fractional CMO services for businesses needing strategic marketing support without the full-time commitment, drawing on over 35 years of experience in marketing. My agency has helped companies and healthcare practices increase their value, grow, and even prepare for acquisition. To learn more about my speaking topics, visit davidkoffer.com. Or if you're interested in our marketing or fractional CMO services, check out koffermarketing.com. If you're enjoying this episode, please leave a review. Your feedback means a lot, and it helps me make this podcast even more useful. Lastly, don't forget to share it with anyone who would appreciate the insights and stories we're sharing here. Thanks again for listening. All right, and we're back just in time for one of my favorite segments. It's the tip of the day. So,
hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
all right, how's that for a little segment?
That's a
Transition.
great tune. Who did that?
Oh, you probably get upset if I told you.
Really?
It was AI.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Isn't that amazing? I
Wow.
mean, yeah. There's a
Yeah.
cool AI app that you can use to create songs and do all kinds
Wow.
of stuff. Yeah,
That is wild how good that is. Okay.
I know. I was like, it's like, hey, that works. So, all right. Rich, you are kind enough to come to us today with a great tip for the day.
Yeah. My tip for the day is that behavior is communication. So instead of asking, why is my child acting this way? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this to me? Why are they doing this to us? Why are they doing this in this grocery store right now? Ask, what is my child trying to tell me about what they need? So again, it comes back to we want to try and practice this stuff not in the moment, not in the grocery store when
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I ask a lot of parents to journal. And it's like I get a lot of eye rolls, but the reason that journaling is really valuable is that it helps us understand certain things that happen in a way that we might not understand if we're just thinking them out. So,
Absolutely.
pen and paper, this is a moment today that I wish could have been better, and just kind of freehand stream of consciousness, not even thinking about it, just writing. And what you end up revealing is triggers and things that set your kid off. So, just thinking in terms of a grocery store moment, a grocery store meltdown. What happened before that? Did we forget to eat? Did we forget to drink water? Did we make too many plans for one day? Did we, instead of just going to the grocery store, decide to go to the dog park and then on a hike and then to a movie and then to the grocery store on the way home? That's
right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's like,
No, there's almost like like you said, kind of a checklist, I think, that you learn to develop depending on your child and their situation.
yeah. And when a kid has challenges in communication and challenges in communicating their needs, it's kind of a puzzle for us to solve.
Very
right?
much.
Yeah. One of the biggest one of the biggest belief shifts that I went through was, it's kind of a subtext to this behavior is communication. It's instead of thinking that the way my kid behaves is a problem and an inconvenience, I like to think of it as another piece of the puzzle in the way his brain works. And another piece of the puzzle in how to approach parenting him in the best way so that I can get him to a place where he knows how to stay regulated and knows how to get through moments where he's, you know, just really starting to feel out of control. But we can help them do that when we set them up for success by not you know, for instance, spreading them too thin and over scheduling them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you can do in advance, but it's also, I think it's just as important. And I love how you've done this, Rich. I really commend you in terms of kind of reframing the approach that we have to take sometimes as parents. Um, I think again, even more so than with a neurotypical, because I don't know if I'd mentioned to you, I actually have twin boys.
Yeah.
So there's always challenges, with kids in general, but like I said, really trying to approach it from their point of view. And it's almost more than just being empathetic, right? Like, I think that obviously empathy is huge. I think that's a very important part of parenting and relationships in general. But it's almost like a step beyond, like I said, that you have to think about again from their perspective and understanding that their unique challenges and that it's not behavior. Like I said, they're not trying to be a-holes to you just because
Right.
they're trying to communicate something. And whether it's in school, right? You hear this, oh, they have behavioral problems, or
Yeah.
no, more times than not, there's something else going on that they're trying to communicate.
Right. Yeah. And that becomes a challenge with school when you don't really have alignment with the teacher and administrators on what your kid needs. And so, I mean, that's a whole other subject, but
Yeah.
in short, communicating really proactively and having that time on the calendar with your kid's school to talk about what you do at home that they could potentially mirror in the classroom and in the school environment. It's going to help your kid succeed a lot. And one of the things that just having that proactive open communication is it avoids the surprise phone calls of, your kid did X, Y, and Z today. Can you come to the office?
Can you come to my office? Right. Like the
Right.
call we all.
Yeah. Or not even, can you come to the office, but hey, can you fix this?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Nope.
So man, we've gone off on so many tangents here. I don't even know where we went.
Well, we're just talking, again, we're talking about behavior and communication. But what
Yeah.
I do, okay, so the other segment we wanted to make sure we got in here, because again, it's I think it's always fun. And again, you brought something to the table. You've over delivered, Rich. But we have our autism fact or fiction segment. So
get QuickTime ready, and here we go. This is Autism Fact or Fiction. We're breaking down what's real, what's rumor, and what might surprise you. Let's go.
all right, so it's fact or fiction. It's the chance to challenge misconceptions and shift perspectives. So what do you got for us, Rich, with fact or fiction?
Yeah, so it's autistic people can't build meaningful relationships. And you guessed it, that's fiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, people on the spectrum can form really deep, meaningful connections. And the prerequisite there is that they feel supported and understood, and that there's compassion for how they process the world differently.
Yes.
I feel really fortunate that my kids are growing up when they're growing up, despite the fact that there's a lot of things in the world that I'd love to change. But one of the major positives is the level of awareness and understanding around autism.
100%. Yeah.
So
Awareness and in many cases, again, speaking from personal experience, a real acceptance too.
yeah, yeah, because again, when we were growing up, it was not really well understood by anyone, except for a kind of chosen few who were studying it maybe at at the university level.
Well, it was just kind of invisible, wasn't it? Don't you feel
Yeah,
like, again, for us
yeah,
growing up, I mean, how exposed were you to seeing, or realizing again that, you're among autistic individuals or kids or, like I just feel like
yeah, yeah.
it,
This
it,
well, there was no, I mean, there was no diagnosis really, um, unless a kid was presenting in a severe way.
severe, right?
Yeah,
Right. And if that was the case, they probably weren't in school. They
right.
probably weren't in our schools,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
exactly. And so, I mean, I have adult friends that figured it out in their 30s
Hmm.
that they were on the spectrum, and it made a whole lot of things make sense about their
Yeah,
life
I'll
up to
bet.
that
Yeah.
point. Um, but the way that my son actually found out he was on the spectrum is it's crazy. Like he was 10 and school was getting back into in person again, and he had a couple of acquaintances that he made at school who later became really close friends, and they used to joke with him, "Oh, Kuma, you're so autistic." And I don't know what those kids meant by that. I don't think they meant it literally,
Right.
but we were getting ready to sit him down and talk to him about it. And we're walking to the car from school one day, and he says, "Papa, am I autistic?" And I I couldn't lie to him,
Right.
and I didn't have a lot of time, so I just said, "Yes, yes, you are."
Yeah.
And his reaction was, oh, it wasn't what I expected. It was almost indifference.
Hmm.
He was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I was gonna guess. Probably was just kind of like, oh, okay, like matter of fact, right? It
Yeah.
just all right.
Yeah. And what I mean, we talked about it for another 15, 20 minutes after that. Because I said, "Do you want to know more about what that means?" And he said, "Okay, sure." And I explained to him that it meant that he processes the world a little bit differently, and that he might have a little bit of trouble with understanding what other people are feeling in certain situations, and that he might need to practice a little bit with how to be more sensitive to other people's needs and how to choose his words with other people.
Right.
Because I mean, as much as a 10-year-old has no filter, like he was incredibly unfiltered.
Yeah,
But I also explained to him who you are also comes with some distinct advantages.
yeah, absolutely.
And um, your ability to focus when you're really into something and get really deep on a subject that you care about, that's something you don't see in most people.
No,
And
that could be a real tool. I mean, that you can really leverage to help yourself.
yeah, and for a while it was things like Pokemon or or Roblox, but now it's math and baseball. And it's like, wow.
How great is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Um yeah, I wish I could get that obsessed with certain things, because it's a recipe for success. Those adults that I know who found out in their 30s that they're on the spectrum, they're like, to a person, very successful, and almost all of them are entrepreneurs, business owners that
Interesting.
built their own thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think you see that a lot.
yeah, I mean, I haven't necessarily dug too deep on adult autism and what that looks like. And I think that's kind of the next stage for me, is understanding that better. But it seems to me that the people on the spectrum as adults can really find a lot of success in choosing their own path.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there are a lot of paths opening up. Fortunately, again, as awareness and acceptance continues to grow. So, Rich, definitely want to have you come back.
Oh yeah.
There's still a
Would
lot
love
of
to.
ground we haven't covered. Like I said, we could talk a long time. For
Yeah.
now, though, why don't you, again, let people know how they can reach you, and a little bit about kind of the coaching that you provide, and some the resources that are available for those who are interested.
Yeah, I do have a one-on-one coaching program that I work with all kinds of parents. Um, Quite a few have kids on the spectrum, and these are parents of kids from level 1 all the way through level 3, and it's necessarily very customized and very much something that we put together as we go, because no two kids and no two families are the
Yeah,
same.
can't template something like that.
Yeah. But there is a structure that's generally followed. And the first phase is always going to be about addressing the parents' emotional blocks and understanding our triggers and how we can be more calm in order to be better parents, and also in order to model that calm for our kids. Because one of the things that happened to me was I was trying a whole bunch of stuff and it really wasn't flying, because I had all this baggage and all these triggers that I needed to address. And once I addressed my triggers and my baggage, what I was able to do for my son, the jump in how effective those strategies became was huge. So there is my book. It does lay out the phases that I use in the one-on-one coaching. And it's something that certainly an ambitious parent could use to do what I've been able to do. And I don't hold anything back in there. So if folks want to throw me $5 for it, they can go to the parentingbreakthroughguide.com and pick it up. But anyone who's listening to this, if they want a free copy, just shoot me an email at hello@gettheparentingbreakthrough.com, and I'll happily throw you the PDF and the audiobook version of that.
That's super cool. Very generous. And I wish, as is the case with many resources that are available today, man, I sure wish I could have had that, 15 years ago. And I wish I would have, known someone like you 15 years ago as we started this journey. It's a tremendous resource.
Yeah, I wish I would have known someone like me too.
Right.
I built the thing that I wish existed when I started on this path 4 years ago. So,
yeah.
And I really made it my mission to just help as many families as I can. And for those that really want the one-on-one help and the hand-holding, that's what the coaching is for. But for those who don't have the resources for that, then that's what the book is for.
Which is great. That's great. Well, Rich, thank you for joining us, sharing your incredible wisdom and thoughts. I just really appreciate it. Yeah, no, helping so many others. So, thank you everyone for joining us again. If you enjoyed the episode, please do share the word. We would love reviews. We're still getting this puppy off the ground, but we're having a great time and always looking at the lighter side. Thanks again, Rich, and everyone have a great day.